Hello, people. Welcome to Tea Time. I'm Alexandra. Today we're hearing a story about identity, belonging, and living as a transgender not as a debate but as someone's lived truth. Just a reminder that this is an open discussion where we talk with people that gave their consent. This is our own opinion based on information we found on the internet, and we suggest to do always your own research. We always try to respect boundaries. We also know that we will discuss sensitive topics, so feel free whenever you want to skip some parts. Other than that, enjoy this episode. Thanks for being here to each and one of you. I'm here with Luca, Ilana, Tiffen, and Paulina. How are you today, guys?
Good. Thank you so much for asking.
I'm so glad you are here with me today. Let's be honest. What's more awkward at the dinner table than politics or religion? Try bringing up misgendering or gender neutral bathrooms. Because you have those questions like, wait, do I have to memorize everyone's pronouns now? Can we just go back to normal? Sounds familiar to you guys?
Yes, definitely.
Misgendering isn't just a slip up, it's a small word with a big impact. And while some argue over signs on restroom doors, others just want to pee in peace without fear of being harassed or worse, or even being attacked. This isn't about cancel culture or bathroom bans. It's about basic respect, dignity, and the right to be seen for who you are. Buckle up, it's about to get personal and maybe just a little bit uncomfortable in all the right ways. For those who may be unfamiliar, Luca, can you explain exactly what misgendering is and what it looks like in day-to-day interactions, or how does it happen, and what are some common examples?
You of course hear my voice. I sound very feminine. I am born as a woman, but I identify as she, they, them. So misgendering is when someone refers to another person using language that doesn't correctly reflect their gender identity, and that's using the wrong pronouns. And it happens in small things in daily life. I think we've all misgendered people without knowing, without realizing. I think it's such a normal thing that happens. I have even misgendered friends of mine. And the difficult thing about it is you don't realize you're doing it. And you rely heavily on appearance. People only look at the outside, but cannot look at the inside on how people feel. And I also think it's a language thing, because in English it is easier to put the right gender because you have words like they, them. But try translating that to your own language, your own native language. Like for me, it's Dutch. In Dutch, there is not really a good translation for they, them. So in English, I think it sounds better for some reason. But in some languages, it's very easy to misgender because you don't know what to say exactly. So, yeah, it's not only a matter of feeling, it's also a matter of the language that you have.
That's really insightful. I really love that you shared your own experience. And for example, even in my native language, Romanian, we don't even have a translation for everything. So as you said, it maybe sound better in English. Now I go to Tiffen. What kind of emotional tone can repeated misgendering have on someone, especially, for example, a transgender or non-binary person?
Actually, imagine that you are a man, you have a discussion with someone, and that person starts to misgender you and speak to you as if you were a woman. You will feel upset and would like to correct that person because you don't recognize yourself as a woman. So imagine what transgender person can cross. Because as a cisgender person, so a person who refers to his gender identity and that matches with their sex that they were assigned at birth. It's really rare and it happens only a few times. However, this misgendering for a trans person happens literally every day, every time when they go to the pharmacy to have medicines or just to do their shopping. So imagine how frustrating and humiliating it is, especially when you wish you could correct that person who misgendered you, but in most of cases you can't. Yes, you can't. Why? Because you might have to justify yourself in front of someone that will probably misunderstand you, or even worse, you can take the risk that this person might hit you. Nobody wants to take the risk of being verbally or physically attacked. In consequence, all of this and even more create anxiety, sadness, and of course, hypervigilance.
You are so true, Tiffany. I think all of us at one point in our lives we try to justify ourselves, which is not always the best option. But now, Paulina, can you talk a bit about why it's so important to respect someone's gender identity, even if it's outside the traditional male-female binary?
Respecting people and their gender identity, even if it doesn't fit in traditional male female categories, it is important because it acknowledges their true self. When people feel recognized and accepted for who they are, they experience a sense of belonging and dignity. Ignoring or denying someone's gender identity can make them feel invisible and disrespected, which can harm their mental and emotional well being.
I love, Paulina, that you talk about emotional well-being. But now I want to return to Tiffen, and I have a question for you. How does using the correct pronouns contribute to affirming someone's identity? Because I think this is a big discussion around pronouns.
Yeah, you're right, because pronouns reflect a person's gender identity. When you use the correct ones, think out that you see and respect them for who they are. So, furthermore, using the correct pronouns contributes to reducing the anxiety and the feeling of rejection of the person, and of course, it improves their mental well being. So, indeed, I think that when people are using the wrong pronouns about you, you will feel excluded. This is why respecting people by using the good pronouns contributes to their feeling of inclusion, recognition, and worth. So those needs are essential to every human being. And as a result, it fosters self-confidence, identity affirmation, and of course, greater well-being, which they fully deserve.
So true. Thank you, Tiffen. Now, imagine walking into a public bathroom and feeling afraid, not of what might happen to you, but of who might follow you out. Just this spring, in Boston, a woman named Ashley Baker was humiliated at a hotel when a guard demanded she prove her gender. Despite showing ID, she was told to leave the restroom. Can you imagine? Why has the issue of public restroom become such a focal point in discussions about transgender rights? And what are the underlying concerns that people tend to misunderstand when it comes to access? I will ask Tiffen to respond to these questions. I bet she's full of insights, as usual.
Thank you. It's a focal point in discussion about transgender rights because it's one of the intimate public space where the intersection of privacy, safety, and social norms are highly visible. So, according to society and public opinion, the problem is not that trans men use men's toilets, but that trans women, so born as in a male body, have access to women's toilet. I think it's one of the main issues because women are victims of street harassments and sexual aggressions on daily basis. So gender toilets are the only place reserved for women, and it's one of the only places where men are not welcome. So by now you're probably wondering what this has to do with trans women. According to some people, trans women are still seen as men disguising themselves as women, giving them the opportunity to sneak into women's public toilets, depriving cisgender women of their safe public space. So this point of view is totally understandable, but in this case, if we take a step back, the problem here is not the trans women seeking to assert themselves, but the men, the aggressors. Like, why do we penalize transgender people just because trans identity is different from binarity and cisnormativity, when the problem here is the men who are the aggressors?
These are some really good questions, Tiffen. Now, Luca, I bet you have answers for my questions again. For many transgender people, choosing the right bathroom can feel like a daily challenge. Could you share maybe some of the real-world struggles that transgender individuals face when trying to use big restrooms?
When you feel like, okay, I have to go to the bathroom, you walk to the bathroom. But at some point, you are standing in front of these doors and you're looking at them, and you see, of course, men coming out of the men's room and women coming out of the women's room. And it feels like you have to make a choice, like, to what box do I want to belong? But the thing is, sometimes I can feel like I have to make this choice and I will forever be put in this group. and it's like feeling stuck, like you won't be able to get
go
out.
back.
Yeah, like you're gonna be stuck in a box, but in the end you can still walk out. So not only about being put in a box, but it also feels very weird and unsafe to be in a room where people really look at your appearance. For example, when the women's room is always crammed. I think we've all been there, that we have to wait like for 15 minutes or longer in line for the women's room.
It's horrible. Oh my god.
Like, I'm a very fast peer. I don't know why we all take so long to do our business. But I have no problem if it's if it's very busy. I just walk into the men's room. At that moment, I don't care. When it's super busy and there's a whole line, I do not care about going into the men's room. But when it's empty and there's no line, and then you go into the men's bedroom and you look very female, then you get all the judges and you get all the stares. But I do believe, also, I am still female, I do believe I need a safety from a woman's bedroom as well. So that's why I don't think it's a good idea to only have gender neutral bedrooms, because they are a safe space and they need to be a safe space. But I think a gender neutral bedroom should have the same safety feelings as a woman's bedroom.
Ilana, do you think we've learned something from areas where gender inclusive bedroom policies have been implemented?
Yes, there are, of course, two approaches to this issue, a very positive approach and a very negative approach. So, if that's fine with you, Alexandra, I would like to explore them both.
Please,
Lovely.
You have all the time.
Thank you. So I'll start with the negative approach. I was reading about a woman who was discussing gender neutral bathrooms. And she said, I have 3 reasons why they shouldn't exist. First of all, they're pointless. Second of all, they're wasteful. And third of all, they're sexist. And I was a little bit blown away. I was like, why are you saying this? What are your reasons behind it? So I looked a little bit more into it. She didn't really have an answer to why they're pointless. But I think bathrooms in general are not pointless. Everybody has to use them. But wasteful, I did get her point. So some schools have minor changes to make the already existing bathrooms gender neutral, and that is fairly cheap. So that is really easy to do. But sometimes like in the Yale Law School and in Target, they had to spend so much money just to completely redesign the bathrooms. In Target, it was up to $20 million, which is, of course, a lot of money, but maybe just a good investment into the future. But I do get where she's coming from there. And then the third point she was talking about is gender neutral bathrooms being sexist. And her reasons for that are, first of all, that women are cleaner than men. The second one is women take longer to go to the bathroom than men. And 3, partly for safety and partly for honoring an old age ritual. Women often go to bathrooms in numbers, and she feels like all of these 3 reasons are not going to be very approachable in gender neutral bathrooms. And a big point she also made, she was really frustrated about that, is if some of the toilets are urinals, it means that men have way more toilets than women have. But I think that's the case even in gendered bathrooms.
True.
Good. Then, a more positive note. But first, yes, but first, some really depressing numbers is an article I found, and it's called "Let Us Be in Peace," where they explain that gendered bathrooms is a real struggle for many transgender people. And according to a study by the National Center for Transgender Equality, 60% of transgender Americans have avoided using public restrooms. 32% of the respondents also reported that they had restricted their water or food consumption just to avoid needing to use the public restroom. 8% developed kidney infections. And if we take that in scale, it's something that happens to 1% of the general population, so that is 7% difference. 12% of the transgender Americans that they have interviewed have been verbally harassed in the restroom, and 2% share that they have been physically or even sexually assaulted in such a space. 2% sounds like a small number, But in the same year, a study by the Williams Institute reported that there were 1.4 million transgender Americans. So if we do quick math, that's about 28,000 people. Gender segregation is decreasing. The gender binary is still present and harmful for all of us. It goes into categories that prescribe behaviors, expressions, emotions, relationships, occupations, with no regard to individuals' actual preferences and skills. To erase the widespread idea of gender, using gender neutral bathrooms is just a small step for the people like us, but a big step for the people who can comfortably use a toilet again, that feel safe and accepted in such a space. And in my opinion, I don't really care where I can be. I feel like the most important question about bathrooms is how can we fix the soap issue? Countless times I have been soapless in the bathroom.
Such a good question. I think all of us have been soapless at some point. But let's shift gears and talk about the psychological impact of bathroom restrictions. Paulina, can you explain the psychological impact this has on a person, particularly on their self-esteem and sense of identity? Because I think the social and psychological impact is such a big issue.
When a person's gender identity is not respected, it can severely impact their self-esteem and sense of identity. They may feel invalidated, misunderstood, or rejected, leading to stress, anxiety, or depression. On the other hand, when they are accepted, they are more likely to feel confident, valued, and secure in their identity, which foster better mental health.
At the same time, we see progress. In California, new legislation mandates that all the K-12 schools must provide gender-neutral bathrooms by 2026. And yet, in Palo Alto, when one school tried to make only gender-neutral bathrooms available, some parents pushed back, saying it made their kids uncomfortable. Gender-neutral bathrooms are often presented as a solution, but what other measures can institutions adopt to protect transgender individuals from discrimination, harassment in public restrooms? Ilana.
Well, that is a very good question because sometimes it's just not feasible to change the bathrooms to all gender bathrooms in a short time. And I think a lot of the answers to these questions are easily implemented, like just putting bins in the men toilets as well. And a really big thing in this discussion, but in discussions that evolve around bathrooms in general, enhance the privacy. I'm not really sure why in some bathrooms some people can peep over or under the doors. So maybe just make the stalls completely closed all the way so there are no gaping holes. And have policies. Have policies that talk about the issues, like the violence in the toilets, and spread them out. Put them in the toilets as well. Something that is maybe less easily implemented, but is very, very important, is having staff that are trained to deal with the situation and can de-escalate if necessary. And more importantly, through training, making sure that it doesn't escalate to violence in the first place. For most of the transgender people that I've talked to and I've read about, gender-neutral bathrooms are the right solution.
Thank you for the insights. Luca, what can everyday people, whether in their families, workplaces, or communities, do to create a more inclusive and respectful environment for transgender and non-binary individuals, especially when it comes to bathroom access?
First of all, just ask. Just ask about how we feel, ask about our pronouns. Normalize also sharing your own, even if it's cisgender or are you the standard. It's about the small, consistent actions that you actually care. So just try to listen and don't think too much about it, actually. I always say to people who are not understanding me or they're trying to fight me, I'm like, okay, what will this matter to you in 5 years? Will you remember this? No. Then it doesn't matter. And it's not worth spending any more fight or time about it now. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to look inside my head. Just ask. And it's okay to make mistakes and just apologize. You have to stand up for yourself all the time. So it would really help if other people also stand up for you. And if you see people struggling in discussions, or you see them shut down or feel unsafe, stand up for them, help them, be aware. And if you see a person who might not look like the gender bedroom they're in, just be nice. You can accomplish a lot by just being kind and ask things. And I think people learn a lot more if you say, I do not understand, or I do not know a lot about that topic. Can you share everything you know with me? And that's a way to get information.
That is really interesting. I think that's such a beautiful advice.
So true. So true. Be kind, listen, because we listen and we don't judge. So
Exactly.
thank you so much, Luca. Paulina, I return to you. How can someone who's not directly affected by this issue still be an ally and advocate for change in a meaningful way?
Even if someone isn't directly affected by these issues, they can still be a supportive ally by educating themselves about gender diversity, speaking up against discrimination, and advocating for inclusive spaces like gender neutral toilets. They can also show respect by using correct names and pronouns and encouraging others to do the same, creating a more inclusive and respectful environment for everyone.
One final question before we wrap it up. Ilana, what would you say to someone who wants to take meaningful action but doesn't know where to start?
I would say thank you. The fact that you want to make meaningful action is just great. So don't put too much pressure on yourself trying to do everything perfect. I think what Luca said is really important. Just talk to the people involved. It is the most important step, because I can declare all kinds of actions and or solutions, but as a cis person myself, it is hard to know. So I would suggest you just start with an open mind and an open heart. Listen to the transgender people in your life and maybe do some research. There are some very interesting essays, videos, movies, series out there that give you some inspiration. Just like we're going to give a lot of recommendations in
Exactly.
our last and final episode or on our website. But once again, just trying to do something is so wonderful already.
It is indeed. A big thank you to all of our guests for sharing their insights today and their own experiences. Once again, we had Ilana, Paulina, Tiffen, and Luca. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Tea Time. Don't forget about our website, where you can find all of the information used for this episode and also for the others. Until next time, stay informed, stay kind, and let people use the bathroom in peace. Bye.